doing with my hair right now. It's incredibly hot in my apartment right now. Like, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I have windows open in the kitchen and in the living room where I am, so it's February. Hey guys, it's Sierra. Welcome to another video on my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my recent reads since the beginning of 2020. I'm probably going to do a recent reads video for like whenever I feel like I have enough to talk about. Currently, let's see, I've read 5 books. I'm not going to talk about particularly all of them individually because some of them are part of a series and they're manga, so it would be kind of a little bit spoilery if I talked about them in depth. But anyways, let's just get going. Starting off with the first thing I finished in 2020. Now this is not the exact copy of the book that I finished because I returned it to the library. This is the 3rd volume of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 1 Phantom Blood. I finished volumes 1 and 2 in different orders, so I finished volume 1 first thing this year, and then I read something else, and then I read the 2nd volume. But this is the 3rd volume I haven't got to yet. But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's kind of this anthology family saga type manga. It's kind of hard to explain. This first part is a series of 3 manga volumes, and it basically follows Jonathan Joestar, who is a kind of sort of rich kid in like 1800s England. And it also follows Dio Brando, who is this not this so well-off kid. This story kind of starts off with Dio's father. Carriage accident. Sorry, I just had a phone call. So carriage accident involving the Joestar family. The Joestar mother is killed, but the father wakes up as Dio's father is trying to steal stuff and thanks him for saving him so he could carry out the Joestar line, and they exchange letters back and forth, and when Dio's father passes away, Dio is sent to live with the Joestar family, and things get a little hairy because Dio is very much a hateful, spiteful character. This is Jonathan. Yeah. And it's like, I first saw the anime series of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I've caught up. Is that a freaking plow? It's a plow. Oh my god. I can't close the window because it's too hot. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I first saw it as an anime and I caught up to part 5. So I just recently decided to read the manga because I was at my local library and I saw that they had the first volume of the first part. Yeah. In terms of the anime, my favorite part is probably part 2, which I'm pretty excited to read in manga form once I finish part 1. I gave this one 4 stars. I gave both the 1st and 2nd volumes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure 4 stars. Not my favorite, and there's definitely some like weird things that happen in the series, so I mean, it's fine, but like, Yeah, but this one definitely has, like, parts 1 and 2 are more connected, so to speak, in terms of the magic system. That's all I'm gonna say on that. There's magic, too. You should read it, or watch the series. It's a commitment, but it's really fun. A lot of beefy boys being like, I don't know, Dio is definitely something. Dio is a character, to say the least. Yes, he's a character, but he's like, I don't even know how to describe. He's just evil for, like, evil's sake, which he just wants to be powerful. Next book that I finished was a short one, and I took my time with it. It took me a bit to read, but it's definitely worth reading because I gave it 4 stars. And that book, without further ado, is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. This is sort of an epistolary novel that kind of turns into almost... It turns into something very poetic, since Vuong is a poet, and this is their, like, debut novel. The premise of this novel is that we don't know his name, we only know that his name is Little Dog, and he is Vietnamese American, and he is writing to his mother, who is illiterate, so she can't read it, so there's kind of like a connotation that it's writing for the sake of telling someone something that they can't really understand or will never probably understand, because his mother, who is Vietnamese, won't understand it nor be able to confront his feelings, so he has the freedom to kind of speak on them. It follows through the course of his life until his early 20s. There's a lot of topics and themes around classism, abuse, sexuality, masculinity, and there is a lot of commentary on addiction as well. In terms of trigger warnings, I'd say violence, domestic violence, child abuse, addiction, drug addiction, death, lots of loss-related things. I'll try and find a resource that has more in-depth trigger warnings, but those are the main ones that I've found. In this book, there's no real plot. There's no, like, standard plot narrative. It's more of a character study on two people's lives, both almost separate and together, because it also talks a lot about Little Dog's grandmother, who is from Vietnam, who married an American soldier in Vietnam, and also it talks about their mother, his mother, and as well as himself. So it's kind of like a family history type thing, and I really liked the character-driven aspect. I'm not quite as used to not having a plot, an ongoing, like, we go here, this happens, and then that means that this is gonna happen. Like, there's no, like, climax or inciting incident. There's no that sort of plot structure. It's more of, like, just weaving kind of a story, like an oral history, trying to explain the context behind certain things and why they occur. The grandmother is probably my favorite character. There is a gay romance in this book. There's also, I would say, warnings for internalized homophobia, does end tragically, so if you don't like to read about that sort of thing, then I would stay away. This was just a beautiful story of family, of friendship and relationship, first love, history, and it was amazing to learn about a certain thing that I had no particular knowledge about. Learn about a familial situation that I didn't really have growing up, because I have a mom and a dad, and I do have a lot of family and not as such a small tight-knit family. It was definitely hard to read at some points. Like, there were a lot of points where it was very intense, but I feel like this book was very important to tell, and it was about mother-son relationships and how people can forgive and also not forgive for certain things. I was enthralled by everything that happened to Little Dog. I was enthralled and interested in his mother, and I was very interested in the history of, I was very interested in the story of the grandmother, which was woven beautifully in the context of this story, and it's only around 240-ish pages. It's really worth a read, but do understand that there is violence and there is like a lot of intense issues that are covered in this book, but it was brilliant. I would recommend it. Just know going into it that it's not plot driven. As I said, I gave this 5 stars. Probably one of my favorite books of the year if I don't read anything that blows me off my seat within the next year. The next book that I read, I don't actually have a copy of. I had returned it to the library, so this is the second volume of a manga, and that is Erased. I'll put the old cover like here, but this is the second volume. Now, Erased is probably my favorite anime of all time, and I really wanted to read the manga that it inspired. So I decided to pick up Erase, the first 2 omnibus volumes of Erase that were available at my library. Basically, this story follows a manga artist named Satoru. And Satoru is kind of failing at his craft, but he is in his early 20s. And he's still trying to figure life out. He works for a pizza place, but he has this ability which allows him to go back in time a few minutes, and when something bad happens, to try and prevent it. He uses this ability sparingly, but one day something tragic happens that something happens that leads to something tragic, but something happens that reminds him of something that happened that he buried deep down from his childhood, and he uses his ability and he ends up time traveling back to when he was a kid, and he has to kind of piece together this whole mystery involving what happened when he was a kid. And like, if you prefer to read a manga and you want something that's intense and has a little hint of sci-fi, a little hint of mystery, true like crime kind of thing, I would recommend Erased. You can either read it or watch it. Both are pretty much similar from what I saw, but man, oh man, it's so good. Like, it's my favorite anime of all time. Like, I've watched it twice already, and I'm probably gonna watch it again. Suede! I'm probably gonna watch it again when I finish my read through of the manga series. Suede? No! Lie down. And I also gave this 5 stars. Suede, Oh, you need food. That's what you need. Before the sun beats down on me, the last book I have to show you is Frankly in Love by David Yoon. This is a book I unexpectedly picked up, and this is like my second time taking it out and actually reading it. This story is about a young adult named Frank Lee, and he is Korean American, and his parents are immigrants from Korea, and they own a store. It's about him discovering he's in love with Brit Means, but she's white, and his parents are very particular in wanting him to have a Korean woman in his life. So he decides, along with a friend of the family's, Joy, that he wants to set up a fake dating sort of relationship. So he will secretly date Brit Means, while Joy will secretly date a Chinese guy. They will make it appear to their family as if Frank and Joy are dating. So that's the basic synopsis. But this book is just much more than the fake dating trope. I'm not gonna spoil what ends up happening. It's a little messy. Some people might not enjoy, some people I've noticed not enjoyed the way the story went, which I was very, this is fine. But near the end of the book, I suspected something of gonna be being a thing, and it ended up being a thing, and it ended up being kind of a twist, which, looking back and reflecting on that, not cool, but what are you gonna do? There is a lot of themes regarding family, culture, and heritage, and ethnicity, and it's very funny. I did end up giving it 4 stars in the end, because I gave 1 star off for that twist that I didn't think was it wasn't mean-spirited, but it certainly, it's not a twist in the it's not a twist in the novel to make a character that we've known throughout the novel as gay. That's not a twist. I'm not spoiling it for you. One of the characters ends up being gay, and that is not a twist. That is not a spoiler. That's why I removed 1 star, but I enjoyed every other aspect of the book, so I could kind of overlook it, but I'm still gonna mention it here. Nobody seems to be talking about that from what I've seen, so here's me talking about it now. The fake dating is fine. It wasn't as secondhand embarrassing inducing as I thought it would be, because I'm very much the type of person who gets embarrassed for a character in a piece of media when something they have to keep a secret, or they have to do something embarrassing or whatever, and something bad happens and then it just blows up in their face. Because that's my empath like thing. That's why I couldn't watch shows like That's a Raven, or else I would like crumble, even though that's such a good show. But anyway, this was a really good book. Just go in it with the mind that there is certain twists in there that may not be for everybody, but I think it was handled in such a way that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I'm not just referring to the queer twist at the end. I'm referring to another type of twist, which kind of, yeah. I like what it did, and I felt like it did a lot of things that most young adult books that I've read personally haven't really explored. Like, the parent dynamic was very real, and the sort of like almost, because in the story there's a lot of based on the opinion of the parents, and they express it too frank that they would prefer to not have a white girl or anybody else. And there's even a storyline and a plot point where they have another daughter, Hannah, who marries a black man, and they completely cut her off. And that's a common sort of situation, I guess, in terms of their culture, because they want to have certain aspects of the culture passed on. But the thing that got me, and I kind of related to it in a sense, was the kind of like close-mindedness of a parent, whether that be to race or religion or sexuality. I got that kind of vibe from it, which I really related to, even though I didn't think I would relate to this at all, because this is about a Korean American boy who's dating a white girl, and I'm not any of those things. So some other warnings I would say in terms of this novel, there is a point where there's a lot of like racial stereotypes, which if you don't like that, I would skip over those. And illness in the family. So if you're triggered at all about a close family member having a very serious illness, it's definitely more than a fake dating trope story, which people make out it to be, and the marketing kind of made it out to be just this fake dating trope book, when it's really much, much more than that. That's the end of my recent reads video. I read 5 books this month, and I'm pretty happy with all of them. I gave them around 4 or 5 stars, which I've been getting like loosey-goosey with my 5-star and 4-star ratings, because I've actually really enjoyed everything I've picked up. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, hit a like button or hit the subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate it. Some of you watching may not know I've actually been on the platform since 2016, which is a long time. And I haven't gained a lot of following in recent months, but I hope to gain more following as I post more and more, which I know I keep promising to do, but it's gonna happen. I promise. So, until next time, stay cool. Bye.